Alright folks, so from me currently making this video, the Kenobi series just had its finale, but before I decide to cover that next week, I've decided to briefly go back to the past and have a look into the Star Wars prequels and give my own thoughts on them. This is simply just because I would feel wrong covering a series that is essentially a sequel to this trilogy before covering it itself. So let's get right into it. First, episode 1, other known as the Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace is a 1999 film that, as well as the whole trilogy, was written and directed by George Lucas, which funnily enough is the first film he directed in 22 years. Can you guess after which film? Yep, the original Star Wars from 1977. This film is set 32 years before that film as well, during the era of the Galactic Republic. It was produced by Lucasfilm with 20th Century Fox distributing it. The film follows Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor, who is a young apprentice Jedi Knight under Qui-Gon Jinn, who is played by Liam Neeson. Then, as the Trade Federation cuts off all routes to planet Naboo, both are assigned to settle the matter, while they meet a young Anakin Skywalker, played by Jake Lloyd. Honestly, you can think of what you want about Lucas as a director and writer, but you have to admit he created this whole franchise, and I'd say his main mistake was just using this story. Well, lack of story really. All it really does is properly introduce us to these younger versions of these characters while going through a story we already knew about, but this time in a 2-hour film. Overall, it can just come off as boring really. As well as that, with any Star Wars project apart from the sequels, we already know mostly what's going to happen from previous projects, and here we already knew most of what was going to happen from what was said in the original films. This ends up with parts of the film lacking suspense, and Lucas as a storyteller is well limited, which is a position no storyteller really wants to be in. Other than just going, oh, we already know this kid is going to become Darth Vader, we already know him and Padme will eventually become a couple and have kids, so no surprise that we see this creepy thing of a 9-year-old flirting with a 14-year-old, with the 14-year-old not being that interested and thinking the kid's sweet. They kind of just skip a part of them which could have clearly just been them being friends who will eventually be together when it's appropriate, but no, it just ended up being with this creepy kind of flirting to me. In then, we already know Anakin will become a Jedi, but it isn't exactly really shown. He is just simply a kid in this film. That would have been completely fine to me, but the movie really just shows characters saying that he is special when he's really not. It's literally just said because we already know what is going to happen in the future films. Also, you know how I mentioned Naboo? We barely even see what happens on the small planet, even though it's a main part of the plot. It's just mentioned on screen by our characters when you know we could have literally just focused on it in the film. In then, a lot of performances are wasted here, like when we have something emotional happen like Anakin leaving his mother, it just feels like it's restrained really. Hey, don't get me wrong, the original Star Wars didn't exactly show a lot of Alderaan, but hey, it still felt the tragedy of the events in the film, through its characters such as Leia and Obi-Wan. It was an engaging film and wasn't just there to be linked to better films themselves. Overall, I feel the reason why the previous films in this franchise was way better than this one is because Lucas didn't have to worry about the future while creating it, while here he has to make sure that this lines up with the future films. However, an amazing part of the film is definitely that it's creative. The creatures, technology and planets are well designed. The effects really hold up for a 1999 film. I went in a lot here, but overall I will give the film a 2 out of 5 or a 4 out of 10. Now to cover episode 2, other known as Attack of the Clones. Spoiler warning, I find this one much worse. This film was released in the year I was born, good old 2002. This time Lucas had help with writing from Jonathan Hales, which I'm quite surprised by. The film follows Obi-Wan, once again played by Ewan McGregor, who uncovers a sinister plot to destroy the Republic, as he is now with an older Anakin played by Hayden Christensen as their pursuing an assassin. This means the Jedi must again defend the galaxy from the Sith. So there's no surprise for you guys to hear, I find this film actually had a lot more problems to me, even more than the Phantom Menace. I think the dialogue was cringe due to the simple fact they started to write it like it was a Shakespearean play for no reason, and sequences just lasted way too long. But before I fully rant on, it mostly suffers from the exact same problems as the previous, along with the two I just mentioned. I would say the only good thing about this one is its action. There are chase scenes on floating cars, a dangerous asteroid field near a planet, and even a half an hour long showdown that showcases amazing CG work. Again for 2002. Performance wise, I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, as I always do in these projects, and I feel like he does actually get more confident with the role as more projects he does. I even enjoyed Christopher Lee as Count Dooku. As always, it was also a delight to have more from Yoda. This is a 1.5 out of 5 to me, or a 3 out of 10. Next is episode 3, other known as Revenge of the Sith. This film released in 2005 and it seemed Lucas seemed fine by himself because he once again directed and wrote by himself. This is set 3 years after the Clone Wars began. Obi-Wan, played again once again by Ewan McGregor, is a Jedi Master, and his Jedi Knight is Anakin, once again played by Hayden Christensen. The two must rescue Chancellor Palpatine, played by Ian McDiarmid, from General Grievous, the commander of the droid armies, voiced by Matthew Wood. However, he escapes. However, suspicion are raised within the Jedi Council about the Chancellor. This then makes him decide for Anakin, who already has a bond with him, to also spy on him. But things goes wrong when the Jedi embraces the dark side. Honestly, this movie is not brilliant, but is definitely the best out of these films. It decides to scrap these awful ideas of the last film and go straight back into the action, relationships and moral dilemmas, which is the heart of this whole series. However, there are still a amount of fair flaws in this film. Essentially, again, it's no surprise what happens in this film. It's essentially what everyone expected to happen to build a bridge between episode 2 and episode 4. Although at the same time, this definitely at the time of its release made people excited to see the development of the characters along with its action. Even then, they do focus more on characters more than others. Big example is that the character as important as Padme is literally barely used in this film. She's only used for a couple of scenes with Anakin, and at the same time, just because I'm a big fan of the actor, they wasted Samuel L. Jackson here, man. Why have such a praised actor if all you're going to give him is just what an extra could have done in the film? This is more of a nitpick, but by this movie, Anakin has been a Jedi for what, 10 to 15 years. However, it doesn't do entirely much to make him be this protector of the innocents to then become an apprentice of the Sith. However, I can't lie, I still love to see it in the film. Overall, this is really enjoyable, but just as a Star Wars film, if you get what I mean. However, definitely with more effort in the direction writing, it could have been much more. A solid 3.5 out of 5 or a 7 out of 10. So that is my overall thoughts about the Star Wars prequels, guys. Honestly, I can really see where the hate comes from. But at the same time, I think it is kind of getting a cult following from what I personally see. There's a lot more people starting to appreciate them, and honestly, I'm a bigger fan of the plot of this trilogy than anything in Star Wars. It's just that, again, the directing and writing isn't the entire best. And I'm not a very big fan of the first two films, and even then, Revenge of the Sith is just a good film overall. It's nothing brilliant. So what are your thoughts on this trilogy, guys? Please comment down below with your own thoughts. Also, please consider liking the video if you did like the video, and subscribing if you see my content around for a while and have enjoyed it. Honestly, it's not the main perks of the videos, but it's also nice to go along with video editing and talk about something I like, if you get what I mean. So yeah, I hope you'll enjoy watching this video and then watching Kenobi's video next week. So I'll see you then.